Hello, my name is Ott. I come from Estonia, and I apologize for my voice. The very intense networking has left its toll, so sorry if it crackles a bit. So my, yeah, okay, right. So my company Vertikal, what we do is we build e-governance technologies, and the background for Vertikal is that we come from a very interesting place called Estonia. And Estonia is mostly known for two things. Its nature and its IT technology. And we built the backbone of the digital nation in Estonia. And we started with something called a digital identity. Some introductions about Estonia. Estonia is a very small country. We don't have too much natural resources. We have the Eurozone and its monetary fund and ICT. So ICT is a big part of the Estonian economy. And when we regained independence from the Soviet Union, then we kind of leapfrogged, similar to what Africa is doing at the moment. So we didn't have old technologies, but we leapfrogged to new technologies. Internet is a social right in Estonia. Every Estonian has an electronic ID. And an electronic ID is like your key to state systems. So this is something that you use to talk to the government and to consume government services. 99% of all Estonian services are online, so you can basically get married and divorced online. And we recently came up with something called e-death. I think the clicker is, yeah, okay. Why is it important, or why is it good? It's efficient. We don't have that many public officials. It only takes a few hours, I would actually say a few minutes to start a company, but a few hours that it has to be approved by the court. And you get a reply in 2-3 hours from the court. You can do everything online. Taxation, the procedure for online taxation takes about 2 minutes, your yearly taxation bills. And it's fully autonomous, so the government knows it fills out your declaration for yourself. And you only have to agree or disagree with the result. And usually you agree, because the government knows what you have done or what you haven't done. And now we get to the fun part. Why I'm here actually today is talking about identity and e-governance solutions. So this card that you see here is the key to your government services. We use this every day to sign documents, to log into the bank, to pay our bills, and communicate with the government. How does it work? So this is based on an exchange layer called the X road. So imagine one big highway that is connected to smaller roads. And data drives on that highway, and you can request from different roads the application layers. So you communicate with the government institutions with that X road. And it saves a lot of time, saves a lot of money, and it saves a lot of trees. What we did in Estonia is we used blockchain before it was called blockchain. Immutable ledger technology was something that we used to keep our data safe. So we use it in our government registries, for example, e-health, property and land registry, the succession registry, and official state announcements. So for example, medical data in Estonia is very private, and if a doctor looks at your medical history and he or she does not have the right to do it, so it's not your physician, then you have the opportunity at any time to request who has looked at your data, and you can backtrack it using blockchain to see if the person has looked at your data and if they had the right to do so. If they didn't, this is a very serious offense. And we had a few cases where our prime minister was in the office hospital, and a few doctors wanted to know what had happened to him, and they looked at his medical records, and nothing good came out of it. So this is protected by blockchain technology. How did we do it? I would even say that it's not that much about technology or money, but it's about legislation, creative legislation that leads to business rules, very clear business rules, business goals, and then the technological layer can be built on top of it. So hopefully, probably you have heard about e-Residency. E-Residency did not exist in 2013. Today you can see a lot of your projects and other governments who are coming out with e-Residencies or issuing e-Residencies. So when we created the original e-Residency, then we named it e-Residency just because of marketing purposes. Actually, when you think about it, it has nothing to do with residency. It is your e-card, it is your ID, it is not a physical document or related to physical presence. But it sounds good, doesn't it? And now we can see that it has been exported to at least 20, 30 different countries and also hundreds of different projects. So today we have over 100,000 e-residents in Estonia who have registered more than 30,000 companies. And this was the first in the world, and it's very nice to see that we have actually taken it afar. And why it's important is because people are moving around. The new age workers are not going to be in the same places anymore, so they are traveling, they're moving, and they don't want to be in one location. And thus we launched something called the Digital Nomad Visa. Also a funny story that we launched it just when COVID happened, so everybody thought that we did it because of COVID, but actually we had been working on it for 2 years. And also there were a lot of other governments who are very tourist dependent who launched their own versions of Digital Nomad Visa. A lot of positive media coverage has come from e-Residency. I think Estonia has positioned itself as the most digitally advanced nation in the world, and for a government who is very small by population, and we don't have too much natural resources, it's a good, favorable position to be in. And that leads me to the topic of e-governance as a service. So we create e-governance software. One project here that I think is very relevant, that has gotten quite far in terms of free city movements, is Prospera. And in the last 3 years we have built something called eProspera, which is the e-governance layer for all of the services offered by the trade zone. And the main principles of e-governance platforms are very simple: centralized policy, neutrality, customer orientation, and protection of personal data. The legislation part, as I mentioned, also critical. Without actually thinking through all of the legal aspects, the technology doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much resources you have, but it has to go together with all of the legal basis. And why it's important, what are the benefits? All of the basic needs are the same. If you look at your projects, mostly what do people need? They need an identity. They need a residency database. They need company formation. They need to pay taxes. They need to contribute somehow. So the basic needs are all the same for e-governance platforms. But just doing it online will save you a lot more money. You don't have to make your own mistakes because you can learn from our mistakes that we have done in the last 10 years. And you don't need to start from scratch. This is the architectural drawing of what an e-governance platform looks like. So you can see that there's the property portal, there's a resident portal, business portal, and then you can see microservices added on top. So you communicate with the banks, telcos, service providers. You can have a marketplace there that third-party service providers will offer services to your customers, your e-residents, residents, e-citizens, whatever you call them. And I invite you to become part of the most forward-thinking governance platform, eProspera. Very easy, eProspera.hn. And you can become an e-resident from anywhere in the world. You can physically come to our zone. It's a lot of fun. Gabe will give you a physical tour. A little bit about who are the e-residents today in Prospera. Most of them are male. We tried to change that in Estonia as well, but the percentage was quite similar. And that's because men are more inclined towards risk-taking behavior and entrepreneurship, unfortunately, or luckily. And to conclude, this is Estonia in the 1980s. It was a dark, cold place in the Soviet Union. But what we did well was the first computer mathematicians who actually came from the Soviet universities. In the 1990s, we created Kazaa, we created Skype, and through Skype Mafia, we created a lot of different, hundreds and hundreds of companies. And I think it's important to see that you can leapfrog from what it was, what Estonia was in the 1980s, under occupation, under the 1990s, and looking where Estonia is today. And this is Singapore. And Singapore is here today. So I think it's important to see that you can leapfrog within 10, 20 years. If you look at our projects, it's possible. So thank you. Do I have questions? Okay, all right, yeah.
Where's the mic?
Yes, very good question. Disadvantage is that you leave out, without wanting, you leave out a certain group of people who are not computer or tech savvy. So in Estonia, we had to do trainings in department stores and malls for people to actually learn how to use the ID card, to log in and to consume the services from the computer, because we tried to eliminate all of physical meetings or the physical offices, but still you have some people who don't want to use it, which is completely fine, or don't know how to use it. So I think that the digital divide is one of the great disadvantages. So that's exactly the immutable ledger technology that I mentioned, that every movement that you do inside the data systems is tracked with blockchain technology, and I am the owner of my data. So at any time I can request to see who has looked at my data and ask why. For example, if we had some cases where a police officer was looking at her ex-girlfriend's data somewhere, that is a huge offense, and that is tracked with blockchain technology, so you can see who has looked at it, and it's a criminal offense. So you can always ask and see. So it's a very private public system in that way. And also all of company financial data is public in Estonia. Please.
We had this case in Canada a couple of months ago where the bank accounts of the people who disagreed with the government were locked. I mean, it's a lot of control in the hands of the government. What if I disagree with your government? What can happen to me?
I am fairly certain that the Estonian government will not close your bank accounts if you disagree with the government.
So I became an e-resident in 2018, and I was very impressed by how smooth the process was. And I renewed the residency, the e-residency last year. And I was a bit shocked, I have to say, by all the questions, the new questions that the Estonian government were asking, like, do you use cryptos? If yes, what exchanges do you use? What are your personal bank accounts? All these questions that seems completely unrelated. Do you know what happened?
Yes, I do know what happened. What happened was the Magnitsky Act and the Danske Bank money laundering scandals. And after that, a lot of anti-money laundering legislation became tougher. And as e-residency is something that gives you the right to act in our economic environment, there are always risks. And after these cases, the risks went up, and that's why the Estonian police and border guard who issues the document wanted to put more questions into the database to see that you are really serious. So the entry barrier went up.
And do you think it's something that could happen in Prospera or other e-residency programs? Because it feels a bit intrusive, honestly.
It is. I agree that it's a bit intrusive. But I think it's important to assess the risks. So if the risks go up, then there has to be measures, because we don't want any bad actors in the economic environment. So there were a few bad actors, and to rule them out, I think you have to adhere to the risks.
Okay, but the bad actors can just lie on the forms.
Yes, absolutely.
So what does the form accomplish? I mean,
it just gives you more information to decide if you want to take that person into the economic environment or not. You can always lie, and there will always be bad actors. You cannot completely rule them out. But I guess in fair honesty, so I do not agree that it should be so harsh, the application page, but I understand why it's necessary. And governments probably have a higher barrier of entry than if we're talking about free trade zones that are operated by private companies, in case of Prospera. So become a Prospera and e-resident, check the application flow is much easier.
Okay, thank you.
Do you think it's efficient for all governments to actually switch to such a system? Or do you think some of them are so locked into legacy systems that it's just not in their interest to do so?
I think most of the governments that I know that are so locked into the legacy systems that it's very difficult for them to do it, but I highly encourage that if the governments want to survive, they have to adhere to these platforms. The logic of this platform at least, because as we know, nations will compete for the best citizens, and the best nations that provides the best service will get the best people. And at the moment, big countries, that's very difficult to innovate, like US, Germany, France, very difficult to have this kind of platforms. But I think in order to succeed, they have to, at some point. And we license the software, so governments, please come to us. I think that's all. Thank you.